Hey gang, it's Paul Ramsey with Dr. Manny St. Victor, and we're doing our second video where we examine motivation. How you doing, Manny?
I'm doing great, Paul. How you doing?
Good. I'm very happy to talk about this topic with you. I love that in our last video, you know, I don't tend to pull the idea of passion right into motivation. So, but as soon as you did, I thought, well, that's a nice, smart way and a nice way of linking two important feelings, right? We want people to feel motivated, and we want people to feel like they're engaging their passions. So especially with us trying to talk about sort of the science of thriving, that's
Yep,
great. Um,
absolutely.
what I'm just gonna let you go because you're the one who really. I was like, okay, school me. Like, why is passion? Why do you think so much about passion connected to motivation?
Okay. Now, in the last episode, we discussed intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, where extrinsic motivation came from outside, intrinsic motivation came from within, and we
Right.
did a quick run through of the different ways that you get to there. Now, motivation, well, and passion is about identity. When you identify with something and you see it as something that's self-relevant, self-aligned, if it matches your core values, then you become passionate about it. And every time you do that thing, you come closer to symbolic self-completion. You come closer to being your ideal self. Okay?
Okay, I always talk with clients. For me, the word I like to use is congruence. When you
Yep.
feel congruent, you're ready to go. Like you get fired up, right? You get 100% behind what you're doing because you feel that congruency relative to your values. Okay.
Yep. Now, where the problem is that there's two types of passion. There's harmonious passion, and then there's obsessive passion. Harmonious passion is when you're doing something and it's in line with your core values, and so it drives you. You thrive. Every time you do it, you feel better. You feel like you're becoming a crisper version of yourself. You know, you're striving towards mastery.
But obsessive compassion is like Glenn Close when she put his rabbit in the thing, right?
That's a whole different
That's a
thing.
different. Okay, my bad, my bad. That's
He was indeed passionate, but that's more Freudian than we. um, but yeah, so obsessive passion kind of is where you're doing other, well, but harmonious passion drives you to flow, and in flow you immerse yourself in what you're doing, and you become one, mind like water, Bruce Lee style. You
yeah.
concentrate, and you're not self-conscious. You transcend self. It's like when you're using the tools after you've mastered the tools and you are kind of one, and you whip some tail if need be. And that's the benefit of mastery, and that's you strive for competence, you strive for relatedness, and in relatedness, you feel like you're part of the mission, part of the journey. You know what you're doing. You're not self-conscious, like you stand out in the group, and you're making meaning.
So let me. Here's my real life thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
People ask me all the time, um, when I'm doing stage hypnosis, all the time people are like, do you get nervous before you got to go? Because the most popular fear in the world is the fear of like public speaking, right? So
Yeah.
people all the time, and I get this, but they're like, you get nervous, you got to go out in front of all those people,
Not.
and I always say to them, no, and a lot of people will be like, really, like you got to be like super confident, and I say no, it's not about being confident, it's about being joyful.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that when I get to go out on stage, I've always just looked at it as like it's harmonious passion, right? Like I'm like I get to go out and do what I like, and it lines up with what I value, and so you can't be fearful like that. You go out and you're joyful and you share it with everyone, and it's just cool and it's easy. It's so
Yeah.
easy.
And you do you, and you're in a
Yeah.
state of flow. When
Yep.
you're in flow, you're not self-conscious. You're not thinking about it. You're just flow is more about being present, being mindful, and being in tune with the environment while your internal compass is doing the driving. You know.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, if you go to the other side, you have obsessive passion. Obsessive passion is the kind of passion where you're doing something that you don't necessarily align with. It's not aligned with your core values. So you're thinking about the other thing that you should be doing. Well, let me flip it and give you another example. Like, say, when I was practicing medicine, I had extrinsic motivators like money, people like want to be a doctor or whatever. So you could project like envy and whatever. But at the core, if you're not doing what your core values align with, there's something else calling you. It's pulling you. You're thinking about that other thing. You're obsessively passionate about something else, And it might be like with mine, I was obsessively passionate about software engineering, but it still wasn't the right thing for me. At the end of the day, what was right for me was entrepreneurship. But the obsession with the other thing was sort of a half throttle trying to redirect me to put me back on course to flow.
Right.
I
get a fair amount of male clients who, when I'm doing coaching work, who their values are set up in such a way that what they tend to most value in this case that I'm talking about, they tend to most value feeling significant and having a clear sense of certainty, like that they're in control of their lives financially and stuff. So what they tend to do is get obsessively passionate about their work.
Yep.
Because work is the easiest, most efficient way to feel powerful and to feel secure, right? Because the harder I work, the more money I make, and the more promotions I get, and the more status I get, and it's like the quickest and most efficient way to like zap all that stuff at once. That's
right up until you check your core values and you hit a midlife crisis.
Right. Yeah.
Now, another check to see if you're headed towards obsessive passion versus harmonious passion is you're not hitting flow, and you're, like I said, you're ruminating. You're thinking about the thing all the time, even when you're not doing it. You're thinking about doing it. Now, in addition to that, there's another element of perfectionism. You hear perfectionism and you're like, oh, perfectionism is bad. Well, there's adaptive perfectionism, and then there's maladaptive perfectionism. Maladaptive perfectionism is at the root of most of your mental illnesses, from addiction to low self-esteem to writer's block, where you're driven to do it, but at the same time you're ruminating about doing it. You're in an amotivational state. You're spinning your gears because you're not in flow. You're not, your inhibitory system is kicking, your inhibition system, because your brain has, we did the things about like the self-referential networks, the salience network, and the default mode network, as well as the attention networks. If you're not kicking it up to your attention network or your task-based networks, you're kind of grinding gears. You're in a default mode network, and you're thinking about your writing, but instead of thinking about your writing, you're thinking, I can't write, I suck at writing, I can't think of anything. Instead of thinking about the beauty of whatever art you're supposed to be creating as sublimation, you're stuck.
Right.
Yeah. You've taken the passion, you've woven it into your identity, but you've done it in a maladaptive way by making it an introjected type of motivation. So you've taken the shoulds, the musts, the automatic negative thoughts, the criticisms, all those things, you've internalized them, and every time you activate the thoughts and concepts associated with those behaviors, you're hearing all the people that tell you you can't do it. You're feeling all the inadequacy. You're not moving towards mastery.
Right.
Somewhere inside, you know that that's not your core values. You know that you'll never hit flow with that.
Right. So now I'm really in my head connecting back to the previous video we did, and again that idea of autonomy, right? That when people are pushing you in a direction that isn't congruent with how you see your identity,
yep,
then you don't have that feeling of autonomy, and everything sort of just you don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. And you might be, you tend towards hoarding. You might be trying to make more money than anyone else, and yet you're still looking around, and as soon as someone gets accolades for their car being nice or their lawn being nice, you hate them because you're like, I gotta have a nice lawn too, because you're projecting the emptiness that you have, you're attributing it to everything else that you see someone looking like they're enjoying their life. Yep. And you want it all. You want all the money. You want the car. You don't want anyone else to get awards. But when you're doing your thing, you've differentiated yourself and you've put yourself in your lane of passion where you're doing you. You're in your flow.
Right.
Your art is unique. Your sound is unique. Your delivery is unique. People connect with you. They resonate with you. They share values with you, and they know that they can come back in 10 years and you'll still be doing the same thing because it's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's your passion. That's your purpose.
Our 3 takeaways then from this video, would these be a reasonable 3, is, so when people are sort of assessing, like, why don't I have more passion in my life and motivation, right? Like they're thinking about motivation, not romantic passion, sexual passion, like you know the passion that we're talking about here. They need to do a check for, does the thing that you feel like you're lacking passion in, does it connect to your sense of identity? That's like one of your first like sort of check things, right? Is you need to be honest with yourself about, does it really line up with your sense of identity?
Mhm.
And then second, um, does it fit with, I can't think of the word, you used a better word than I used. So identity, and then oh, so frustrated right now.
What was the context?
So they have to have that congruency there, and then they want to achieve flow. Well, flow seems almost like sort of lofty, right? Like we can't. I mean, we want everyone to be in a state of flow.
You got to meditate.
Yeah,
You got
yeah,
to get mindful, because as long as you're doing, if you can't ever hit flow, you got to like listen to your inner thoughts and be like, what is stopping me from flow? If it's your inner critic, then listen to your inner critic and then rise above your inner critic.
right,
If your inner critic is saying you can't do whatever and whatever, you shouldn't be doing this, you got to look at what what cultural script you adopted that doesn't necessarily align with your core values and makes you feel inferior.
right,
What voice? Who told you that? That type of thing.
yeah.
So the second one you were looking for, is it like symbolic self-completion?
I was thinking the room, like I was trying to think of like the rumination thing. Like if you catch yourself ruminating, how do you, we talk a lot in my hypnotism world about pattern interrupts, that people get locked into looping patterns of thinking and self-talk and stuff. So
Yep.
like you were doing such a great job of modeling that and sort of talking about the internal voices that people use. And I was like, so if they get caught in ruminating, like how do they help themselves jump out of that pattern and break free?
Okay. That's when you have to go to another level of abstraction. That's when you think about your core values. You evoke your core values, which you want to write somewhere to make explicit. You want to write them, and the system I came up with was basically you list them out, you compare them. I call it LCP: list, compare, prioritize. And anyone, if they want to go to mindful360.com, we have that free download down there,
Cool.
over there where they can get it. But you do the LCP, you keep it around, you review it, you update it every once in a while as you mature.
Yeah.
And when you get stuck in a rut and you find yourself doing things that are not aligned with your values, and you're picking lower priorities over higher priorities, you can safely assume you're destroying your self-esteem, your sense of self-worth. Get in the habit of stopping, kind of sitting in the emotions that are uncomfortable, identifying the emotion, labeling it as, this is shame. I'm not going to let someone shame me into doing something that's not aligned with my values. I'm not going to let someone guilt me into doing something that's not aligned with my values.
Yeah.
And then you think of your values and you do the thing. And often it's a harder decision. Often it involves, alienating people that you've had long relationships with.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I feel like that's a good way to get people to start stepping back and thinking about, assessing why they might be lacking passion relative to motivation to get things done that they need in life. We're gonna do one more video, and that one's gonna focus on.
Is that the one about perfectionism, or did we cover perfectionism okay in here?
I think we covered perfectionism okay. I think what we could do, I think we could talk a little bit more about. Well, you tell me. Do you think we could talk? We could get even deeper on like, once you've talked about once you know about these forms of motivation from the first video, and then you know about how to get around passion and fire that up. Can we give people skills for how to create flow? How to really fire off a state of flow? Can we get?
We got lots of videos about the mindfulness. We do have the mindfulness series that.
Yeah.
Because flow is about core value alignment. So we can do that. We can absolutely do that.
All right. Okay. That's it for this one then. Thanks, Manny.
Thanks, Paul.
We'll see you all again soon. Come back and visit us at Hypnotic Thoughts.
Yeah, man.
And